Happy Monday, family. It is Yolanda. It is Monday. It is another episode of Everybody at the Table. I am super excited today about our conversation, and I'm going to get right into it. If you've been watching and you're plugged into the common conversation on social media, especially if you're into sports, I know some of you all are not into sports. But this week was the NFL draft. It's one of the most significant experiences in American sports, and the drama. The NFL, in its grand and dramatic fashion, has literally turned the draft into a reality TV show. We've watched young men, largely black young men, paraded through the theater of selection, where they are chosen by teams, changing the very trajectory of their lives. For many of them, it's a leap from poverty to generational wealth. You see the excitement in their families surrounding them, the girlfriends, the big chains, the designer suits, all of them ready for that life-changing call. And in an instant, they go from poverty to millions of dollars. One of the key storylines this year is that of Shedeur Sanders. What's unique about Shedeur? For starters, he's the son of Deion Sanders, NFL Hall of Famer, larger-than-life personality, and now one of the most significant college coaches in the country. Deion is loud, he's confident, he's arrogant, but he's a winner. Deion backs up his rhetoric with performance. It's been fascinating to watch Shedeur's development, and many believe he's the best quarterback in the country. That's debatable. Yet there was complete tension around his draft process, and here's why. Shedeur was expected to be drafted in the first round of the draft. The first round of the draft is where the high-performing, highly recruited players usually find a team, or they're selected by a team. Most of these negotiations go on months, weeks, days before the draft, but each team is expected to select from this unique class of high performers in the first round. This is important because if you're selected in the first round, you generally are getting the $1 million contracts or millions of dollar contracts, as well as a guaranteed spot and playing time your first year. It's important to go in the first round. And it was fascinating for anyone that follows football because it was clear that Shedeur is a top performing player and should have landed in the first round draft. But that didn't happen. And the reason why it didn't happen has been speculated throughout social media for 3 days. It has me thinking, what happens when you're not invited to the table? Or what happens when your invitation is rescinded? Let's unpack why I think this happened to Shedeur. First, Shedeur decided not to perform at the NFL Combine this year, an event where players show off their skills in front of scouts and coaches. This is important because talent are often recruited during the football season, years sometimes in advance, certainly months in advance of the draft. Well, anything can happen between December and April. So the combine is this last moment where teams get to see, are you still performing? Are you still athletically agile, intelligent to perform at the next level right before they make their final decision? It's not unprecedented. It's happened before that players have not attended the combine, but it's still seen as a snub. So Shedeur not attending was a strike, if you will, in the wrong direction. The second issue that I believe caused teams not to invite Shedeur to the table was Deion. Take a listen to what this one analyst describes as Deion's air, how he swells a room and what NFL insiders think about that.
Right? And, when I really noticed how the Deion era affects everybody, when I got on TV, okay, so I grew up a Deion Sanders fan. Like most everybody grew up Deion Sanders fan. He a baller. He got that swagger. We love it. I get on TV and I start seeing all this media, right? And I'm like, wait, nobody likes Deion, right? And the problem is they're trying to get at Deion Sanders through his son. Deion's already done, man. All he does is win everywhere he goes. High school, college, pros, after football, he's a winner. And they're trying to get back at Deion Sanders through his son.
In true Deion fashion, if you know him, he is a media expert. He knows how to use the media to manipulate his story. That's not to be offensive. That's what media is for. Recently, as 2 months ago, he made a public statement about where he, Deion, would allow his sons to play. Take a listen.
But you have said that if the right team does not pick him, that you will intervene.
That's my son.
You and I both know these coaches, these owners, right? You've been in the rooms.
Right.
The owners, billionaire owners,
yes,
will often say, well, this is a young man who should be making his own decisions. He's got this helicopter dad.
Not my son. And we ain't in no helicopter.
For those who would say this isn't a problem because Deion is a proud father and he wants to protect his children, I agree. However, in a system where the draft is set up like an owner to employee hierarchy, where they pick you and you show up, this was seen as a huge breach of unspoken norms. Deion flipped that on its head by implying that his son has a choice. And he does. Many of us work in our careers to make ourselves credible enough, develop our skills enough to be able to negotiate where we want to work. It's always a choice. Here's the real tension for me. It's not just that Shedeur is a confident black man. It's not just that his father is involved. It's that Deion Sanders would be an extra player or coach in the room. Please understand, Shedeur's football journey is completely intertwined with his father's coaching. If you watched their reality TV show, I think it was Deion's Family Playbook, you saw Deion's involvement with his sons. Admirable. Deion coached their Pop Warner teams, their youth teams. In fact, he built an entire youth league around his kids. When Shedeur went to high school, Deion became the offensive coach for Shedeur's school. When Shedeur went to college, Deion became a head coach at Jackson State University. And instead of Shedeur committing to the school he was originally going to attend, Shedeur became the quarterback at Jackson State University. And then when Deion moved to the University of Colorado, Shedeur transferred and became his quarterback there too. Shedeur has never really been coached without his father's shadow. And while Deion has every right to pour into his son, why wouldn't he? This is the first time the NFL would have a parent, especially of the likes of Deion Sanders, so deeply embedded in a player's life, career. So teams have to wonder, if we draft Shedeur, do we get Deion too? And how coachable would Shedeur be if his father isn't calling the plays? It's clear to me that Deion understood what was happening.
This is so funny. It's funny when he's lost for words because
I know what's going on.
But it's funny because he never comes to that conclusion. No, he never does.
No,
He gonna be the last one to ever say that.
I like to have hope, and I like to trust God. Dang, God ain't it. This
ain't God.
This
the devil.
Now that was funny. That was Deion and his sons, Shedeur and Shiloh. And I absolutely love the public face. While I know they were hurt and disappointed, they displayed during this episode. Now listen, I know some people are saying race is an issue, and race is always an issue. In this case, I don't believe that Shedeur is being uninvited or was uninvited temporarily because Dion is a strong black active father. While I understand the argument, there's nuance here. I'm not convinced that it's purely about race. The NFL is 56 to 58% black. I recognize this statistic is related to players, and there's less percentage when you get to coaches, no representation when you get to ownership. However, there are plenty of players in the NFL who have active fathers in their lives. We hear about the stories where the fathers are absent, but take Jalen Hurts, for example. Jalen is the Super Bowl winning quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, whose father is very involved in his life and formerly coached him as he was coming through the system. Jalen had his troubles, but he did not experience what Shedeur is experiencing. So I don't think this is fully about a strong black father. I believe it's more about Dion, the Maverick, the dominant voice, the coach, former football player who would be extra energy in the locker room. And there's a difference. At the end of the day, I don't have any antidotes. I don't have any judgment for Dion and how he used the system to elevate his sons and other young men. That's an argument for everyone else to have. I'm just a student, if you will, of how these dynamics work. I would say that one critique I have for Dion is the overplay of the media in speaking about his sons publicly in a controlling manner that would make anyone fearful. As a leader, if I was hiring someone and I felt like their parent or mentor or former boss, someone other than my influence had more of a dominant voice in how they showed up, what they were willing to do, how coachable they were, that would be a challenge for me. It seems that NFL teams, coaches, and their head offices may have had these same concerns for Shedeur Sanders. And let's just be honest, they were humbling both Shedeur and Dion ultimately with this performance. Like it or not, in the NFL, the owners own the table. And Shedeur, by his bloodline, his confidence, his upbringing, isn't seen as fitting neatly into the system they expect players to slot into. When you're building your dreams, breaking molds, and standing on your own terms, sometimes the table doesn't want you there. Not because you're not talented, not because you're not prepared, but because you won't be controlled the way they're used to controlling people. And that is a story as old as time. So those are my thoughts. I kind of like to watch the world through the lens of this table analogy and how people play the game. Like it or not, it's a game. And we get to choose how we're going to play it. As always, thanks for listening. I want to hear your thoughts. We should rock the comments in this conversation. So please tag me. If you disagree, I want to hear it. I want to have a good discussion on this. Thank you again, as always, for listening. Please like, share the podcast. And as always, take care. Until next time, dine well.